Hiya Kat, really nice to meet up with you and spend an enjoyable weekend working on your game. Really enjoyed it. From my point of view, it was a really satisfying weekend. I thought you got a lot of nice changes, some really good understandings in regards to the system and how it applies to you. The important thing to remember is that it's not about having or applying all the information. It's about applying the most appropriate changes for you at this moment in time. The golf swing's always in flux, it's always changing. Your ball flight and the shot patterns that you're experiencing will always require certain adjustments to be made to satisfy what you want to do with the golf ball. So as a result, you know, the system is all encompassing. Do you need to understand the whole system? Not necessarily. Do you need to understand the pieces that apply to you and your current shot pattern? 100%. And that's what the weekend was about, really, trying to obviously answer a few questions that you had, but mainly give you some clarity on what you need to work on and why. So initially I put this together in the order that we did the work during the weekend. Obviously you've got your short game and your bunker recaps to view as well. Started off with your low point control. We looked at a player. What we're seeing here is a player who clearly has both centres, so centre of the shoulders, centre of the hips, well forward at impact or coming into impact. So the weight forward aspect of controlling the low point is being satisfied, but we still have a low point that is back of the golf ball. And the reason we get that is because during the downswing, as we're coming into impact, the club is trying to pass the hands. So the rate at which the club overtakes the hands is a little bit too high. It's not massive, it's nowhere near as excessive as some that I see, but it's just a little bit too quick and causes that low point to be a nuisance at times, shall we say. So it's not like every shot's hit heavy, but you do occasionally hit one. And I think there's a danger within Stack and Tilt that every time you hit the ground behind the ball, you think that the weight not being forward is the issue, when that's not the case. Your weight is well forward. I haven't got a problem with that whatsoever. I wouldn't want to see it more forward than you've got it there. I think it would be too excessive and unachievable. But what I do need to do is control the rate at which the club passes the hands. So what we've done here is the flying wedge drill. We've pushed the handle forward more at address. We've pushed the hips forward a little bit more to accommodate that. We're presetting an impact position, and then we're just going to drop down with the shoulder, start the backswing, and just punch these balls forward. When you're doing this exercise, you only need to do it with a half swing. You can see as you're coming into impact now, the weight is still forward, but so is the handle. The positioning of the handle helps control the low point. You can see that there's much more shaft lean at impact than what you were demonstrating at the start of your session. Just get rid of the lines. So the more the handle pushes forward, for you to hit the ground in the same place every time consistently, we have to have the weight and the handle forward, and that was your reason for low point control issues. So plenty of work on the flying wedge drill. You can see there that there's much more angle in the shaft, there's much more angle between the right forearm and the shaft, which is the flying wedge, the right arm flying wedge. Keep working that in there. Don't need full swings, don't even need to be fast swings, just an appreciation of, you know, keeping the handle forward. And to be fair, when we did the 9-hole assessment, I was really impressed. I thought you played really well, hit a lot of good quality strikes, so that would suggest that your understanding of your low point issues has improved and been put to bed. We then touched on what the in-to-out aspect of the golf swing is. We can see here that anytime we position the ball back in the stance to whatever degree, we're going to be hitting down and therefore out at it. The in-to-out aspect of the golf swing is a very short affair through impact. You see we're hitting down and out, down and out. And then once the club gets past low point, it should start to work back in. There's a lot of players think that the in to out is a continuous thing, that means the club and the arms have to be swung out dramatically this way, when that's not the case. We're hitting in to out at that point, and we're now working back in so that we can trace the circle or trace the arc in the through swing. If we were to continue down the red line or down the red arrow, we will be hitting out excessively, and we'd have a situation where players start to lose their inclination to the ground, get the arms thrown off the club, the body, get a high rate of closure, etc. So if we're now hitting out, in this instance, we're back in the grid, so let's say we're hitting out 20 degrees. For us to hit a draw shot, what we would need is a club face that, with a mid-iron, is open to the target but close to the path. So we want a club face that's pointing less to the right than the path that we're creating. So the club face is pointing somewhere between the target line and the path of the golf club. So if our target line was here, blue line, the path of the golf club is the red line or the red arrow, the face angle is the yellow arrow, and the blue line is the target line. Ball starts roughly where the face points, and then the fact that the path is to the right of it, a 2-to-1 ratio, draws the ball back. One of the problems that we experienced during the early part of the session with the hooky shot that you could get is that your understanding of how to draw the ball was a little bit skewed, and what would happen is, as you were coming through the golf shot, you were starting to close the club face down too fast, and you, instead of presenting the club face slightly to the right, and we did this back in the grid so it would stand out more, rather than presenting the club face slightly open, what we were doing was actually working too hard, doing too much, and starting to square the club up too fast, resulting in shots that started straight and then curve left. So you can see as you're coming in, club face squares up and closes down. The closure on that face was a little bit excessive because we got a heel strike. Hitting the heel of the club slows the heel down, speeds the toe up, which can cause the ball to hook even further, or at least start further left than you would desire. So controlling the club face, understanding how a draw is produced, applying the club, centered contact, as you discovered during the weekend, is very, very important, and something that's got to be appreciated. I think if a lot of players appreciate that that's important, they can start to fathom a way of making a more centered contact with the mechanics that they've got. Mechanics do play a part, but only your mechanics are adequate to hit the centre of the club face, providing that that's a focal point. So once we discussed those two areas, we talked about your takeaway and the changes that I'd like to see. We've got a miss out to the right when we have a club face that rolls under and open to the arc very early in the piece. As a result, the set of the club is very flat and the swing is directed too much to the right. So we talked about how important it was to keep the club square to the arc early in the golf swing, and we related it to the back of the left hand. There was too much rotation of the back of the left hand from setup to when the shaft's parallel to the ground. So the drill that we gave you was to have zero rotation in the back of the left hand during the takeaway. As the arms go back, the hands on the club work inwards and upwards at a steady rate, making concentric circles, allowing the club to trace the plane line, trace the arc, and stay squarer to the arc. Now granted, the swing's got to continue from there and there's still things that can go wrong, but because there is less rotation of the back of the left hand, try that again, beg your pardon. We've got less rotation of the back of the left hand during the takeaway. That means that the club hasn't come under the arc and hasn't rolled excessively open to that arc. So your chances of dispatching that golf ball down the line are much higher than they were with the other takeaway. So we're just trying to make things a little bit lower maintenance. We also discussed your posture. We talked about being a little bit more caveman. I'd like to see you getting a little bit more over it, get the knuckles a little bit closer to the floor, if you will. We can see at the start of your session that let's play this back. Granted, it's with an iron, but you represented the same move with your driver. Very much sort of eyes pointed out, spine very erect, shaft sitting very high, look like you're sitting on a bar stool. What I want you to do is look down at the ball more, get a little bit more hinge in the pelvis, feel like you're a little bit further away from it, and get the shaft sitting a little bit more at the belt buckle. Again, it's a more dynamic posture and it's more suited to taking push off the shot. The posture that you're demonstrating on the left here is quite appropriate, sitting down on it, spine very erect, eyes out in front of the ball, handle very high. There's a lot of push in that posture, so improving your posture a little bit, again, will help control the amount that you can push the golf ball. And then the final thing that we talked about was maintaining your inclination to the ground. During the early part of your session, I'll just run this through because I'm not sure if it's as prominent with an iron. Yeah, we come up very, very quickly in the through swing. We lose our inclination to the ground on the way through. This can happen and does happen earlier with your driver, which has a bigger effect on the outcome of your shot. So what I'd like you to do, and this is just after doing it, the drill, it's quite an unusual drill, feels awkward at first, not worried about your backswing on that one because we weren't focusing on it. You're trying to max out the right tilt in the finish. If a player is tilted over to the right more as the club exits, so remember that your right tilt here now is in this direction towards the ball. So normally we would stand up very quick. We're tilting over to the right more, which means our hip slide has been more continuous. So if, to maintain the inclination to the ground, the hips must slide, extend and turn at a steady rate, that means that if we learn to maintain our inclination to the ground, the hip slide, the extension and the turn must be going in there. Now, they don't go in there incrementally to start with because we're not familiar with it, but they do go in. So there's a lot of hip slide going in and sort of right shoulder working down goes in very late in the piece, and it's quite laboured, but gradually as you work into it more, you become more familiar with it. Just as with the takeaway, it's not a case of thinking about that on every shot. It's a case of applying that process when you practice, when you play. Your takeaway work can be done with your pre-shot waggle. You're maxing out the right tilt and looking at the shots with your eyes angled over rather than level or more level. Can be done during your practice swing. So practice swing, max out your right tilt. When it comes to hitting the shot, a couple of pre-shot waggles where you demonstrate the move that you're showing here, which I thought was the best move that you made during the weekend, and then go ahead, hit your shot. The more you do the two moves, the more familiar you get with the two moves, the more comfortable you get with the two moves, the better your shot pattern will become. And work on things in the order at which we worked on them at the weekend. If low point's an issue, get that done first. If low point is good and the balls are hooking, consider the next bit, which is club face angle. If we're then pushing the ball out to the right, consider the takeaway. And then if we're getting low bottom edge strikes, and toey strikes, consider the inclination to the ground. So you've got a systematic approach to police your tendencies. That's the key. What's appropriate to Cat, not what's appropriate to CC, or not what appropriate to Darren, or not what's appropriate to Charlie Wee, but what is appropriate to you at any given moment, or during any given period during the season. So, you know, apply that system, stick to the keys that we've covered during the weekend. And like I say, I look forward to watching this progress. Look forward to getting a bit of footage in the next couple of weeks via Ubersense. Really look forward to hopefully meeting up again and doing a similar session, or a similar weekend, or a one-day session, whatever's more appropriate for you both. Enjoyed your company. It was a pleasure to teach you, and like I say, I look forward to doing it again in the near future. Take care. Well done.